John Trask was ambitious, chauvinistic, and prepared to do whatever it took to move up the corporate ladder. He had been a sales analyst for his company for 7 years and had done reasonably well. His tenure had earned him a certain amount of credibility with management, and he used that stature on occasion to convince attractive new female employees that having sex with him would be in their best interests. In truth, he was not well liked by any of the female employees, but he had enough power to bully them into a subservient role. Trask really didn't care how he came across to the women. They were, at least in his mind, just pieces of ass that were pleasing to the eye. About 2 years ago, the company hired Laura Davis as a second sales analyst. John did not like the decision at all. Ms. Davis was a young, aggressive, drop-dead gorgeous MBA who was very, very smart. As time passed, it was apparent that she was actually more suited for the job than John, which infuriated him. About 6 months into her time with company, Laura was approached by John to go have a drink after work. By now, she had heard plenty from the other women in the office, and she had developed a strong negative bias towards John. Further, she thought John was really not all that smart, and she was confident that it would only be a matter of time before he would be working for her. John found Laura's outright rejection of his invitation to be humiliating, but he had another problem. He could see that she was doing spectacular work, and he feared that she might be promoted before he was. As humiliating as his failure to lure her into bed had been, the thought of having to work for the bitch, as he had now come to think of her, was beyond consideration. One night, John happened to be leaving the office late and found himself as the last person out for the night. As he passed by his rival's office, he decided to stop in and snoop around a bit. It didn't take long for him to find a document labeled "New Idea" in the bottom drawer of Laura's desk. An hour later, John had read the entire proposal and was beyond impressed. The idea was brilliant and the writing and presentation was flawless. He decided to take it with him. The next morning, John reported to work early and paid his manager a visit. He showed him the document that he had stolen the previous night. "Here's an idea that I've been working on," he told his boss. "I asked Laura to look at it and she didn't like it, but I thought I'd run it by you anyway." He paused for effect. "I know you're busy, but I'd sure value your opinion." His boss was intrigued. "Okay," he said as he looked at the document, "let me take a look." "Oh, and John," the manager continued, "I like the initiative. Good for you." Around 2:00 that afternoon, John received a text from his boss. "Come see me before the day is over," was all it said. John wandered up around an hour later and was greeted with, "John, have a seat. I read your proposal and it just about knocked me off my chair. The idea is terrific and that presentation, quality of writing, and overall package makes a very compelling read. I'm blown away." John just smiled. "Thank you, sir. Do you really think it's that good?" "It's better than that good," came the boss's reply. "Tell you what," he went on, "I think it's time for me to put you in the managerial role that I've been thinking about." John's eyes widened. "To be honest," advised his superior, "I've been leaning towards Ms. Davis, but you've earned it." "You okay with her reporting to you?" "More than okay," said John as he secretly smirked. It didn't take too long for a meeting to be called with the big news. Laura Davis was furious when she realized that John Trask had stolen her idea and represented it as his own. "That bastard," she shouted. With his newfound position and prestige, John wasted no time in propositioning most of the attractive women in the office. His pitch was always the same: "Sleep with me or I'll see to it that your career here is over." The resentment ran high. It was even to the point where many of the male colleagues thought that John was a complete jerk. John, of course, didn't mind the fact that he was becoming one of the most hated people in the company. He just knew that he had the upper hand and that he had outsmarted that uppity MBA girl. Every year, the company had a big summer outing. It was a true blowout celebration with lots of food and lots of alcohol. There were games and prizes. It was a highlight for the employees. John was hitting on the women and having a grand time. He was pounding down the beer and felt just a little tipsy. I better slow down, he thought. Inevitably, the beer flowed through his system and he decided not to wait in the long porta-potty line. Instead, he wandered into the woods and relieved himself. As John was taking care of his personal business, he heard shouts and cheers coming from the other side of the woods. He made his way over and saw about 10 cheerleaders practicing their routines. Emboldened by the alcohol, John decided to secretly watch the pretty young girls as they did their cheers. He looked around, thought what the hell, and dropped his shorts and underwear down to his ankles. He began to stroke his now hard cock as he fantasized about what he would do to these cute little cheerleaders if he had the chance. Laura Davis had seen John go into the woods and wondered what he might be up to. She quietly made her way along the natural trail and had to stifle and laugh when she saw John with his bare butt showing, quite obviously jerking off while he spied on the cheerleaders. Laura licked her lips and snuck closer to John. Meanwhile, John was mesmerized by the noble young ladies and had retreated into a world of his own. "This is too good to be true," smiled Laura as she got nearer and nearer to her prey. When Laura got immediately behind John, she put her foot firmly on the pants and underwear that were done at his ankles and said in a very loud voice, "What are you doing, pervert?" John's was so startled that his eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. Before he could react, Laura yelled, "Are you spying on these cheerleaders and jerking off?" She then gave him a big push and he fell out of the woods and literally rolled down an embankment towards the now wide-eyed group of girls. Unfortunately for John, by placing her foot on his pants and underpants, Laura had seen to it that he was bare-assed and all the cheerleaders could see his hard-on as he rolled helplessly towards them. Laura shouted, "He's all yours, girls," as she gathered his pants and underwear and ran quickly back to the party. On her way, she made sure to drop John's clothes into some very swampy water. As Laura hurried back to the party, John Trask finally stopped rolling down the hill and found himself in a very undignified ass-up position as the cheerleaders surrounded him. "So you were spying on us, pervert," yelled Sally Curry, who was captain of the team. "I'm sorry," blubbered John. "Not as sorry as you're gonna be," smiled Sally. "All right, ladies, let's set up the gauntlet, shall we?" The gauntlet was a standard initiation rite for all new cheerleaders. Everyone on the team positioned themselves in a line with their legs spread apart. The newbie would then be required to crawl through the line and receive a steady stream of spanks on their very vulnerable bottom. As the girls were getting themselves situated, John decided to make a run for it. Unfortunately, at least for him, he was neither athletic nor fleet of foot and was easily caught by Sally. She tweaked his nose and led him back to the girls and their now formed gauntlet. "You're pathetic," laughed Sally. "You run like a girl. You're going to make a great cheerleader." "Please," begged John, "just let me go." "I'm really sorry." Sally turned to the team. "What do you think, ladies? Should we let this little sweetie pie go?" Everyone burst into howls of laughter. "Get down, bitch," ordered Sally. John meekly obeyed. "You know, we normally have to pull the newbies' panties down at some point as they crawl through, but you've made it easy. Your butt is bare and ready to go. Now," Sally said sternly, "start crawling." As all of this was taking place, Laura had returned to the party and had begun telling some of the girls about John's predicament. "And you just left him there?" chuckled one. "I'd like to see this," said another. "You know," smiled Laura, "that's actually an excellent idea." She cupped her hands together and shouted, "Hey everyone! John Trask has a big surprise for us on the other side of the woods. Come on, let's go see." It didn't take long for almost everyone to join the improvised conga line that was making its way through the woods. "I wonder what the surprise is," asked one. "I'll bet he's done something really cool," said another. "Maybe," came another voice, "but he's such a dumb guy I can't imagine what he's come up with." By the time the crowd started to come through the woods and see poor John, he was only halfway through the line of cheerleaders. As he crawled through, each one made sure to lock their legs and hold him in position as they delivered hard smacks to his exposed rear end. Are you kidding me? John Trask is getting his ass spanked by a bunch of cheerleaders. I've got to get a picture of this, said one lady as she pulled out her cell phone. Hey John, shouted Laura, smile for the cameras. When John realized that he was now being humiliated in front of the entire office, he started crying with embarrassment. Oh, look at the little baby, giggled Laura. I don't think he likes his spanking. What the fuck, said John's boss when he took in the spectacle. Laura commented, sir. I'm afraid that I caught Mr. Trask masturbating and spying on these girls. I was horrified. So am I, replied the boss, so am I. As of this moment, Mr. Trask is fired. And Laura, the boss added, I think you should take his job. Okay? Yes, sir. All right, folks, said the boss, show's over. Let's go back and have a good time. But what about John? Asked one of the employees. I think Mr., or perhaps it Ms., Trask is about to join a cheerleading team. As Laura triumphantly made her way up the hill and back to the party, the last thing she heard was a bawling John Trask and Sally saying, You're going to look great in your cheerleader panties.